好，嚟到2017年嘅第9條題目呢，又係睇病學 Bio 啦，非常之中意嘅一條題目啦。今次題目呢，就講一款疾病叫日本腦炎，咁啊顧名思義啦，就係個腦發炎啦。咁點解呢？就係因為我哋受到病毒嘅感染啦。咁科學家呢，就去研究翻唔同嘅疫苗啦，就係對抗呢個日本腦炎嘅病毒嘅。今次呢幅圖呢，就係想去研究一下啦。我哋有3款嘅疫苗嘅使用方法，我哋分別嘅效用係如何呢？佢哋能夠提供到嘅保護又係如何呢？咁呢幅圖呢，最緊要嘅就係呢一條線，就係要學識咩叫做最低水平嘅有效保護，亦即係話我哋用咗 A、B、C 3款方法之後啦，咁我哋都會咧獲得一個對抗日本腦炎嘅保護嘅。只要呢個保護咧係高於呢一條線，高於呢個最低水平的話咧，咁即係咧我哋係免疫於日本腦炎噶啦。咁 A、B、C 咧陣間先講係乜嘢嘅處理方法啦。我哋先睇下 A part 咧就係最直接嘅題目啦。究竟日本腦炎係用咩媒介去傳染嘅呢？咁其實啦就係考我哋咧，日本腦炎作為一個傳染病，究竟佢嘅傳播途徑係點樣嘅呢？咁啊根據翻啦衛生署嘅資料咧，我哋就會查得到啦。日本腦炎咧就會透過蚊咧所去傳染嘅。咁所以啦，蚊咧就係我哋嘅答案啦。你會問啦，係咪嘢嘢都要去翻衛生署嗰度 check 啊？梗係唔係啦。我相信咧，大家老師咧係一定有講過唔同類型嘅例子嘅，登革熱啊、瘧疾啊、日本腦炎啊，就係一個好典型嘅例子啦。都仲未計平時咧，我哋食錯嘢啊！點解食錯嘢啊？就係講緊呢啲烏蠅咧嬲完啲屎啊，有啲病菌啊，就去咗你嘅嘢食嗰處啦。你又唔即刻食佢，就容許啲病菌咧喺度1變2、2變4、4變8，變咗好多嘅細菌出嚟啦。咁然後你食咗呢啲細菌落肚嘅，咁你咪屙咯。好，咁講完 Part A 啦，入 Part B 之前咧都講一講解咧我哋成個操作先。咁啊，成個實驗咧就係想去研究一下我哋打疫苗嘅唔同方法，佢能夠提供到俾我哋嘅保護咧，究竟有啲咩嘅分別啊嘛？係咪？咁啊 A 呢個方法咧，我哋打1眼針嘅啫，就係打6個微克嘅疫苗啦。B 呢個方法咧，我哋都係打1眼針，不過呢啲針咧就係 double 份量啦，由6個微克去到12個微克啦。跟住去到 C 呢個方法咧，我哋就打2眼針。第1眼針咧就打6微克，第2眼針都係打6微克，就分咗2次去打，就係第0日同埋第28日分別就打各自1針啦。咁所以你會發現咧 C 同埋 B 咧，大家其實都係打咗12微克，不過咧 B 呢個方法咧就一嘢打眼重嘅針俾你 ，C 呢度咧就打2眼輕嘅針俾你，而 A 咧就只係打1眼輕嘅針啫。咁而家翻返去 Part B 咯，佢就講翻啦 ，C 呢個方法即係打2次針啦，就叫我哋解釋一下啦，點解喺第28日到第35日之間，我哋個身體對抗日本腦炎嘅保護水平咧，係一個爆升嘅情況咧 ，sharp rise。咁呢條題目咧，其實就係考緊我哋對於再次反應嘅機制係點樣樣嘅。咁當然啦，亦都考下我哋有關於接種疫苗嘅原理啦。咁當初我哋都講過啦，接種疫苗咧就係透過特異性嘅防禦機制嘅專一性同埋免疫記憶，去提高翻我哋身體對抗疾病嘅能力嘅。疫苗就含有抗原啦。當我哋個抗原再次去刺激我哋個身體嘅時候咧，呢個題目啦都係考翻於初次反應啦，同埋再次反應嘅。所以你會發現啦，第一支針咧所引起嘅就係初次反應，我哋個身體咧都已經能夠產生到一啲抗體啦，去對抗病菌噶啦。但係同一時間都有記憶細胞嘅出現，而呢個正正就係能夠解釋翻喺28到35日之間，點解我哋個身體去對抗日本腦炎病毒嘅能力係有個爆升嘅情況。只不過呢條題目咧，我哋就要留意啦，我哋需唔需要去解釋由第0日去到第28日發生嘅事呢？即係要解釋下我哋嘅初次反應嘅免疫機制呢，係唔需要，因為題目淨係問我哋由28日去到第35日發生咗咩事啫。你會問啦，喂，梁 Sir 啊，咁究竟呢，我哋需唔需要講初次反應啊？係咪完全唔使講啊？又未至於喎，因為初次反應留低咗一樣好重要嘅嘢俾我哋去完成再次反應。所以咧，我哋整個故事係要由初次反應嘅末端去講起嘅。初次反應能夠俾到我哋嘅就係淋巴細胞，佢能夠分化成為記憶細胞。當呢個記憶細胞再次面對到同一款嘅病毒抗原嘅時候，呢個記憶細胞就會再次分化成為特殊嘅 B 淋巴細胞或者特殊嘅 T 淋巴細胞。例如啦，特殊嘅 B 淋巴細胞就係漿細胞啦，而特殊嘅 T 淋巴細胞就係 T 殺手細胞啦。從而啦就能夠提供一個爆聲嘅保護。但係呢個爆聲嘅保護係點樣嚟嘅呢？我哋就要理解下喺我哋嘅免疫反應嘅強度同埋速度嘅改變啦。咁當中啦，你要寫嘅就係能夠製造到抗體同埋殺手 T 細胞，但係唔夠。我哋唔係淨係講 yes or no， 我哋要講 more or less， 唔係有冇嘅問題，而係多少嘅問題。我哋嘅免疫系統能夠喺短時間之內製造到大量嘅抗體，或者製造到大量嘅殺手 T 細胞，所以先能夠提供到一個爆聲嘅保護能力啦。其實你可以比較到噶，初次反應呢，就係第0日去到第28日，足足28日，咁啊升到一個特定嘅 level 啦。你會發現再次反應呢，佢喺28去到第35日，短短7日之間，已經可以令到個保護嘅水平係一個爆聲嘅效果。好，跟住啦去到 Part C 咧，佢就問翻啦，喺 Treatment C 叫做打2針，嗱每次咧都要打6微克嘅話啦，究竟仲有啲咩嘅好處呢？咁其實呢個題目咧就考我哋啦，睇翻個圖表啦。咁當中咧，我哋除咗見得到咧喺28到35日啦，有個爆聲嘅情況啦，我哋咧都仲可以去觀察一下咧，由第35日去到第56日之間咧，佢嗰個保護嘅水平啊，仍然都係喺高位嘅。所以啦，對於呢一款打2針，第2針我哋成日話叫加強劑啊嘛，所引發出嘅繼發反應或者叫再次反應啦。第一個好處就係有一個爆聲嘅保護水平啦。第二啦，就係佢呢個高嘅保護水平咧，係能夠維持一段長嘅日子嘅。嗱，個題目嘅變奏咧，就可以問下你咯。對於繼發嘅免疫反應咧，究竟佢有啲咩嘅重要性或者好處呢？所以咧，今次你要諗嘅咧就係2樣嘢。第一就係個強度，強度咧就係頭先嗰條講嘅，就係能夠咧提供一個好強嘅保護啦。而第二啦就係個長度，就係一個長時間嘅保護啦。跟住啦去到 Part D 咧，佢就講啦，阿 Matthew 咧喺10日之後咧就會去到一個地方，佢係一個日本腦炎好高危嘅地方嚟嘅。之後咧就會逗留15日嘅。第一部分咧，我就問翻啦，根據翻呢個圖表啦，就要我哋去揀選翻啦，究竟係打1針細嘅，打1針重嘅，定係打2針細嘅，係最能夠提供到保護俾佢呢？同埋解釋你嘅答案啦。咁呢個題目呢，我哋就了解下成個個案嘅情景啦。首先呢 Matthew 呢，其實佢有10日去預備好自己呢，係有一個足夠嘅保護嘅，亦即係話喺佢出發之前呢，佢應該已經獲得一個相當嘅保護水平，而呢個保護水平應該已經係高於呢個最低嘅保護水平噶啦。然後啦，佢要喺呢個地方逗留15日，就即係去到第25日嘅時候呢，佢嗰個保護水平應該仍然係好高嘅。又即係話啦，由第10日去到第25日之間，佢需要嘅都係一個高於最低有效保護水平嘅 treatment 啦。所以答案呢，就一定係 treatment B 啦。因為我哋發現呢，透過打 B 呢眼針呢，其實佢已經係能夠提供到一個最低嘅有效保護水平。而兼且啦，如果你講得盡啲嘅呢，原來係唔單止第10日到第25日，係第10日去到第47日呢，都仲係一個高嘅水平嘅。咁啊，完全能夠 cover 到佢整個旅程啦。反觀 A 同埋 C 嘅 treatment 呢，去到第10日呢，其實都未足夠高於佢嘅最低保護水平。即使去到第25日，都仲係低過佢。咁你會話唔係，去到 treatment C 呢，去到第28日去到打第2針啦，咁咪爆聲咯，翻咗嚟啦。Matthew 已經仲打針，要病嘅都應該病到七彩啦，已經係咪？好，跟住啦，去到 part 2啦，佢就講翻呢，作為一個盡責嘅公民呢，當阿 Matthew 啦翻到嚟香港啦，咁佢就呢仍然用呢個蚊怕水啊，呢啲驅蟲劑啊，就噴自己噴多2個禮拜先。咁就問翻你啦，點解 Matthew 要咁樣做呢？背後有啲咩嘅理據呢？咁呢個題目呢，第一啦就係考下我哋有關於日本腦炎啦，係透過咩媒介傳染噶？就係蚊啦，係咪？第二啦，我哋就要分清楚受感染同埋患病呢2個唔同嘅概念啦。雖然啦 Matthew 咧喺第10日去到第47日之間，佢嘅保護水平咧已經係高於最低嘅有效保護水平，即係話佢係免疫於日本腦炎。但係代唔代表佢唔會俾蚊針呢？如果佢俾蚊針，呢隻蚊個身體入面又真係有呢個日本腦炎嘅病毒， 咁即係話啲日本腦炎嘅病毒仍然係有機會進入咗 Matthew 嘅身體。Matthew 係會受感染，但係佢會唔會病？佢唔會發病。咁所以 Matthew 咧，佢嘅免疫系統係夠強，去能夠去對抗呢個病毒嘅感染，所以佢係唔會發病嘅。所以 Matthew 佢個情況就係講緊，即使佢俾蚊針啦，而呢隻蚊嘅身體入面真係有日本腦炎嘅病毒入咗去 Matthew 嘅身體，Matthew 的確係受感染，但係佢唔會發病，因為啲病菌會俾佢壓制咗，即係話 Matthew 係一個無症狀嘅感染者。至於整個問題嘅關鍵就係講緊，究竟 Matthew 佢嘅免疫系統雖然佢係免疫於日本腦炎，但係咪代表咗佢嘅免疫系統係強到能夠100% 去滅絕晒喺佢身體嘅日本腦炎病毒嘅一啲受病毒所感染咗嘅細胞呢？我哋發現唔一定係嘅。所以啦，當 Matthew 喺個旅程當中真係俾蚊針過啦，真係有啲病毒喺佢個身體入面啦， Matthew 係唔會發病嘅，佢唔會有症狀嘅。但係喺佢身體入面嘅血呢，係的確係有機會含有日本腦炎嘅病毒。而如果佢翻到嚟嘅時候，又真係俾啲蚊再叮過佢，而呢隻蚊又去咬另一個人嘅話呢，咁呢個日本腦炎嘅病毒就有機會傳播俾另一個人。而如果嗰個人係冇打到日本腦炎嘅疫苗嘅話呢，嗰個人就有機會發病啦。點解 Matthew 翻到嚟香港都仲要噴蚊怕水呢？係因為防止啦，或者降低翻啦呢個日本腦炎嘅病毒佢嘅傳染嘅。咁所以翻嚟嗰套哲學啦，我哋唔係講緊會唔會啊、有冇啊、係唔係嘅問題啊，係講緊多或少、早或遲、快與慢嘅問題。無症狀感染者佢之所以恐怖就係佢自己冇發病，但係佢根本就受感染，佢有冇機會傳染病菌俾你？絕對有可能。好，跟住啦，又嚟到一點出發啦。今次嘅題目呢，就由日本腦炎開始嘅，當中考我哋兩樣嘢啦，睇病學 Bio 啦，同埋接種疫苗啦。日本腦炎佢自己呢，係一款傳染病嚟嘅。咁日本腦炎啦，喺睇病學 Bio 嘅概念嚟講，有啲咩嘢我哋會學到呢？日本腦炎係一個傳染病，而傳染病呢，都係由一啲病原體所去導致嘅。咁點樣病原體會導致疾病啊？就係當病原體去入侵咗我哋嘅身體之後啦，佢就會分裂啦，一變二，二變四，四變八。當佢個數量夠多嘅時候啦，咁佢就有機會引致疾病啦。咁啊，例如啦，直接破壞我哋嘅細胞啦，或者放出毒素啦，或者咧一啲有破壞性嘅酶啦。咁當中啦，我哋都學過唔少嘅例子噶啦，病毒啊、病菌啊、原生生物啊或者真菌咧，都會引致唔同嘅疾病嘅。呢啲例子咧，大家一定要擺少少落個袋度噶啦。跟住啦，既然講開傳染病，就梗係要講下傳染途徑。講完傳染途徑啦，就梗係講避免嘅方法啦。而講完傳染嘅途徑啦，就梗係講下預防嘅措施啦。例如啦，愛滋病係透過血液啦同埋體液傳染嘅。咁我哋就諗下咯，你愛滋病人就梗係唔好去捐血啦。又或者啦，當我哋進行性行為嘅時候呢，都要有一個安全嘅性行為，例如佩戴安全套啦，係咪？呢啲概念我相信大家一定會識嘅。跟住啦，就再講下病徵同埋症狀啦。記住啦，病徵呢係能夠睇得見、量度得到嘅。例如啦，你嘅體溫會上升啦，或者啦一個不規律嘅心跳速度啦。症狀呢就係只有個病人自己先會感覺到啦，頭痛啊、胃痛啊、暈啊，呢個呢就係症狀啦。然後咧就去到接種疫苗啦，考我哋嘅當然係特異性防衛機制啦，而結合咗初次同埋再次嘅免疫反應呢，就係考翻我哋成條題目嘅身體防衛系統啦。當然呢條題目啦，亦都考我哋有關於記憶細胞嘅功能啦。而呢條題目呢，冇特別問我哋嘅，就係炎性反應，佢係一款非特異性防衛機制。題目一開始已經講咗俾你聽噶啦，日本腦炎就係個腦發炎嘅。我哋呢一條題目冇問到，下次就會問你啦。炎性反應有冇啲乜嘢嘅副作用？過往呢條炎性反應都講過俾大家聽，紅腫痛熱啊嘛，係咪？ 聽起上嚟炎性反應係好事嚟嘅，咁啊因為啦我哋咧個多啲血液咧運送去我哋受感染嘅位置啊，多咗白血球啊，多咗抗體啊去幫我哋打仗啊嘛，係好事嚟噶嘛，係咪？但係而家我哋成件事係講緊日本腦炎喎，梁 Sir 個腦發炎喎，同個肺發炎啦，個肝發炎啦，個腎發炎啦，個膀胱發炎啦，我哋講起發炎就知道好大件事嘅喎，似乎唔係一件真係咁理想嘅事嚟嘅喎。雖然佢係幫緊我哋打仗，但係原來今次打仗嘅地方喺邊度啊？喺你個腦度，喺你個肺度，喺你個膀胱度，呢件事就非同小可啦。所以我成日同學生講，炎性反應就係6個字嘅啫。愛你變成害你，佢明明就係想快啲打仗，打死啲病菌咪冇事咯。但係我哋個身體個免疫系統又點會知道今次打仗嘅地方係喺你個腦度呢？ 2017 question 9 is about the disease approach. It is my favorite question in 2017. So the disease we are going to study is the Japanese encephalitis. So in short form, JE is the inflammation of the brain caused by the viral infection. And the scientists, they have developed a vaccine against the JE virus. In this study, we are going to investigate the effectiveness of the vaccination treatments at the level of the protection against JE. This graph, the critical idea you need to understand is this minimum level of effective protection against JE. It means that after we have such treatments ABC for the vaccination, and we shall gain a certain protection against the JE. Once this protection is higher than the minimum level, so you are immune to the JE. So for the treatment ABC, we shall talk about it in the next part. So let's talk about the part A. It's a very straightforward question. What is the factor for transmitting the JE virus? So we need to recall that JE is the infectious diseases. Then we need to recall the ways of transmission. According to the website of Center for Health Protection, so we can see that JE is a mosquito-borne disease. I'm sure that your teacher must teach you some mosquito-borne disease, for example, the dengue fever, malaria. So this vector, they are the mosquitoes. After part A, before we talk about part B, I would like to talk about the 3 treatments. In this study, we are investigating the effectiveness of the vaccination treatments and the level of protection against JE. So for the treatment A, there is only 1 injection of 6 microgram vaccine. And for treatment B and C, actually, there are total 12 microgram of vaccine, but for treatment B, there is only 1 injection of 12 microgram vaccine. But for treatment C, there are 2 injections of 6 microgram vaccine each on day 0 and day 28 respectively. So you can see the difference between B and C. Let's take a look at the question. For treatment C, we need to explain why there is a sharp rise in the protection against JE from day 28 to day 35. So for this question, we need to recall the mechanism of secondary immune response, also the principle of vaccination. Vaccination makes use of the specificity and the immunological memory of specific defense mechanism to develop an enhanced immunity in the body. So you can see that for the first injection, there will be a primary immune response. So for our body, there will be antibody production and the T killer cells production to fight against the virus. For the second injection, there will be secondary immune response and there is an enhanced immunity to the disease. So you may ask that, Mr. Leung, I know that primary immune response is crucial for the memory cell production. However, do I need to write down the detailed mechanism of primary immune response, which is from day 0 to day 28? You do not need to write it down. So what should I need to mention? You just need to start the whole story from the end of the primary immune response. It means that the certain lymphocytes differentiate into memory cells when they encounter the antigen of the vaccine in the first injection. Therefore, you just start the story from the production of memory cells is okay. And then the key idea will be the second injection. So for the second injection, memory cells, they will encounter the same viral antigen again. And then the memory cell, they will differentiate into specific B lymphocytes, which are the plasma cells, or the specific T lymphocytes, which are the T killer cells. So that's the action of the memory cells you need to mention in this question. And then what's the result? We need to beware of the change in the magnitude and the speed of the immune response. Of course, it is the secondary immune response, resulting in the production of antibody and killer T cells. However, that's not enough because we are not talking about the matter of yes or no. We are talking about the matter of more or less, faster or slower. So we need to mention the magnitude and the speed. So that's why the whole concept should be the production of large amount of antibodies or killer T cells within a shorter time, leading to a sharp rise in the protection against the JD infection. You can compare the number of days, day 0 to day 28. For the secondary immune response, from day 28 to day 35, there are only 7 days. So for part C, we need to give one more benefit or treatment C. So this question is checking us our graph reading, and the concept is that apart from the sharp rise of the protection, we can also observe the level of protection after the second injection from day 35 to day 56. You can see that when we are talking about the secondary immune response, we are not talking about the magnitude and for the speed, but also for the time, for the duration of the protection. So the protective effect does not wear off, or the protective effect remains high from day 35 to day 56. So for the possible question variation, you can ask that state the importance or benefit of the secondary immune response. So the idea is that Matthew is said to be immune to the JD because the protection against JD is higher than the minimum level for effective protection against JD for a longer period of time. So for the three keywords, magnitude, speed, and the duration. And for part D, Matthew plans to visit a country with many JE cases in 10 days and will stay there for 15 days. With reference to the graph, which vaccination treatment ABC should he receive at this moment? Explain your answer. So for the whole scenario of the case, so we need to know that Matthew has 10 days to prepare enough protection against JE before he travel. It means that the protection against JD is expected to be higher than the minimum level of effective protection against JD before he travels. On or before day 10, he should require the protection against JD above the minimum level for effective protection against JD. And then the protection level should be high enough in the following 15 days. That means the day 25. So we need to determine which treatment provide a prolonged protection. We do not only consider the magnitude and the speed, but also the duration for the protection. So we can see that the vaccination treatment B, it can offer the protection over the minimum level of effective protection from day 10 to day 25. Or even you say that from day 10 to day 47. Which fully covers Matthew's trip. And we can see that the treatment A and treatment C, the level of the protection against JD is still very low before day 10, even during the trip from day 10 to day 25. And you may ask that, no, Mr. Leung, for treatment C, you can see that there is a sharp rise of the protection on day 28. But the point is that he has already come back to Hong Kong already. What's the point to have the second injection? And then for the part 2, as a responsible citizen, Matthew will continue to use the insect repellent as the precaution for 2 weeks after he's back from that country. So for this question, we are going to check the concept again. We need to recall the vector of JD in part A, which is the mosquito. And then we need to distinguish being infected from being sick. Although Matthew is immune to JD, he may still have chance to be infected. The case is that his protective level against JD is higher than the minimum level for the effective protection against JD. However, he may be bitten by the mosquito, which are the vector transmitting the JD virus. However, the protection against JD is higher than the minimum level for effective protection against JD, as I mentioned. Therefore, Matthew's immune system is still strong enough to fight against the viral infection. Therefore, he will not suffer from JD. He will not show any symptoms or signs of the JD. However, we need to think about this critical scenario. Although Matthew is immune to JD, does it mean that his immune system can 100% completely eradicate all JD virus or all infected cells in his body? Or will the case be like that? The protection against the JD is strong enough, will only suppress the JD virus or the infected cells in a low number, and then Matthew will not show any symptoms or sign. If that's the case, we can describe Matthew is the infected person without showing any symptoms or sign, but he is still have chance to transmit the disease. So that's why the whole concept from this question is that even if he has contracted JD during the trip, he will not show any symptoms, but he was infected. So this precaution can help to prevent or reduce the risk of transmission of the virus to other people, as the insect repellent prevents the mosquito bite. So you can imagine that when Matthew comes back to Hong Kong, there are still some JD virus in his body, in the blood, and when the mosquito bite him, and then the JD virus go into the mosquito, and this mosquito go to bite another person, so the JD virus will be transmitted from Matthew to the other people. And what if the other people, they do not receive the JD vaccine? They may be suffering from the JD. It's time to recall the biology philosophy. We are not talking about the matter of yes or no, but the matter of more or less, sooner or later, faster or slower. In this case is that we cannot say that the immune system can completely eradicate the JD virus in Matthew's body to make it zero. And we cannot say that. There may be just a small number, a very, very small number of JD virus in Matthew's body. And there is still chance for the transmission of this small number of JD virus from Matthew to other people. So let's talk about the curriculum mapping. So for the whole question is talking about JD, and then there are two concepts we are checking: the disease approach and the vaccination. So for the disease approach with the JD is a type of infectious disease, right? And for the infectious disease, we know that it's caused by the pathogens. So we have some example of the pathogens and the disease they cause. And how do the pathogen cause disease? So when the pathogen, they enter or invade our body, they will multiply. So when they multiply to a certain number, so they may cause disease, mainly by direct destruction of the cells or releasing toxin or destructive enzymes. And then for the infectious disease, we need to study the ways of transmission. And after that, we can talk about the preventive measure for those infectious disease. For example, for the AIDS, we know that it's caused by the HIV virus transmission through the blood or the body fluid. So we can do that the preventive measure. For example, we wear condom for the protective sexual intercourse, or do the screening for the blood before we really use it for the blood transfusion. For the disease approach, we also talk about the sign and the symptoms. So the idea is that the sign is an evidence of the disease that can be measured or observed by other people. For example, when you are having fever, your body temperature is increasing. In contrast, the symptoms can only be felt by the patients. So the headache, stomachache, dizziness, so that's something you tell me rather than we can really measure. And for the vaccination, it checks the concept about the specific defense mechanism and combine it with the primary and the secondary immune response. It talks about the body defense system Especially this time we talk about the memory cells, why there is a sharp rise of the protection from day 28 to day 35. And in this question, we also talk about the non-specific defense mechanism, which is the inflammatory response. So for this part, I would like to talk about the side effect of the inflammatory response. So in this question, we say that JE means the inflammation of the brain. So you may think that, no, Mr. Leung, inflammatory response is a good thing. A lot of the antibody, white blood cells, they will be transported to the wound, to the infected area to fight against the pathogens. That's the good thing. Yes, I agree. However, you need to know that, but you need to realize that the battlefield is the brain. Or for the other disease, the battlefield is the lungs, is the liver, is the kidney, is the urinary bladder. So that's our organs, the crucial organs in our body, especially in this case, our brain. For example, will there be any brain cells in our brain be damaged, be destroyed by our own immune response, by our own body defense system? The key idea I always talk to my students is that the inflammatory response is something self-harm reaction. I love you, I try to protect you, but somehow I hurt you at the same time.